Hey everyone, and welcome to the Fantasy Fiends podcast. I know that it's Tuesday and not Thursday, and we really appreciate you changing your schedule, quitting your job to come and hang out with us today. I am Stevie Collier, and I am here with my co-presenter, Andy Peliquin, and today we are honored to have Scott Moon, and he is the author of the
Chronicles of Ken Roland.
Chronicles of Ken Roland.
I had Ken Roland written down, and then I forgot the beginning. Which is no surprise to anyone out there. I'm 100% sure. I was prepared to talk about his Reaper series, which, the freaking covers, Scott, dude, these look like movie covers.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and I'll segue into kind of how we got that. So I sent some samples in for one series, which is the Chronicles of Ken Roland, which has Reapers as aliens. It's kind of like Aliens meets Starship Troopers, right? But yeah. Jeff Cheney and I also wrote the last Reaper series, and when we were starting that series, we wanted to decide what to call this assassin group, and we decided on Reapers. I said, I have another series that's Reapers. He said, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. Nobody will be confused at all. But anyway, yeah, no, those covers are great. I love the covers. As a matter of fact, at this point, Jeff, he just is like, hey, I want you to write a book, show me a cover, and then I'll just go crazy because they're very inspirational.
Yeah, it's actually, I used them as sort of the touchstone for the covers when I was letting my cover artist know what I wanted for my sci-fi books. I was like, I used that one, and then it might actually be the other Cheney series, the other really famous one.
He has the he has the Renegade
series. Both of those two, I was like, all right, I want my character to look this badass.
Yeah, he has great luck with book covers, so good stuff.
Oh, Andy, you actually took inspiration from the Reaper series?
Well, so I was, I've never read them, but I was looking at all the covers on Amazon to sort of see, what to pitch to my cover artist. And I loved both the vibe of the Reaper, which kind of has almost like a Wolverine kind of vibe to it, especially the one where he's walking down the spaceship corridor with the two blades. I was like, that is an absolute, Wolverine thing. And then the soldier of the Renegade series. I liked both of those vibes. So I showed them to my cover artist. I'm like, just do something like this. Make him look this cool.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of the Punisher.
He's kind of got all those elements. His character, he's very much an anti-hero. So,
is he?
He's kind of has some Punisher-esque attitudes as far as he deals with people that want to hurt anybody he cares about, which is his main thing.
That's awesome. Which is always fun to play with.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get Andy started on anti-heroes.
Yeah. No, he definitely is.
So what we do, Scott, at the beginning of our podcast, we usually talk about something cool that's happened to us within the last 2 weeks, month, some time in the near past. And again, we did not give you a heads up on this, which is Andy's job. All of it's Andy's job. Anything that goes wrong, it's Andy's job. Andy, did you have anything cool that happened?
Lots of cool stuff happened. I'm just trying to think of something cool that has happened. I mean, I started the fifth book in the Cerberus series. So that is, I think I'm about 15,000 words into it. I started on Friday. Nice. And I'm loving it. It's so much fun to explore a new element of it, which is him versus the cops, both the good cops and the corrupt cops. Sorry, Scott, I apologize.
Go do it. Go for it.
And it was actually really cool because in the beginning of the novel, I was like, how can I make this more interesting? You got to have those kick-ass fight scenes, and I was like, oh, perfect. Just have SWAT storm the building where he's at, and he has to get out. And he doesn't want to kill them because they're SWAT. They're technically on the same side, side of law and order. He's a soldier, so he's not going to drop them unless he absolutely has to. So it was this fun sort of difficulty where he's got to get out, survive, but he can't use his usual method. So it ended up being just this really fun, kick-ass opening to the book that I really enjoyed writing, and I'm going to get to bring them back later on a couple of times. And I'm excited. I love doing something new in stories, and so this is the first time I get to play with SWAT tactics and all of that.
We were chatting about that a couple weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, a couple of days ago. Yeah,
doing some research.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I downloaded the SWAT, like as much of the SWAT manual that I could find online.
They have it online.
There's several. Yeah, you can find a lot of it. A lot of the stuff is pretty standard and whatnot. I was a police officer. I still am for 23 years, and I spent 11 years on the SWAT team. So we have a part-time team. So it's basically means you do your regular job, but then you also train and then you go on call outs and stuff like that. So I'm always interested in the SWAT stories and how they're done. There's lots of cool ways to do it.
So do you hate that SWAT movie?
No, it's fun. I mean, I take movies. Just like my father-in-law is in the military. Everybody knows people who've been in the military, and they're like, "There's so many." Like, do you hate them? Like, no, you just kind of take them for what they are. If you made a cop movie like cop stuff is, it would be so boring. So you got to throw in some drama. Throw in that drama.
So to become is it a SWAT officer, SWAT member?
Yeah, it's a SWAT operator is what they usually call themselves. But
okay,
you can be an officer. You can be an officer, detective, sergeant, lieutenant. Most of those ranks are going to be, but you get higher than lieutenant, and you're not really doing much. You're more of a administrator.
So how do you join SWAT from the cops? For the officers, you just try out.
So on our department, you have to have a minimum amount of time on. So I think you have to have 3 years on. And then you go in and you try out. There's like a pre-screening, like a basic physical fitness and shooting. So if you can't like run the Cooper's mile, which is 1.5 miles in a certain time, do so many chin-ups, and like do a body drag. And then that's pretty basic. Most people can do that. And then you have to shoot at least 85% to try out above 90 to be on the team. And that's just in your regular qualifications. Then they have like a hell day where you go for ours is 2 days, where you go 2 days, and it's kind of like a mini buds type thing. They just put you through a bunch of stuff, make you work in teams, make you do just different tasks, and do tactical shooting and problem solving and stuff. And then they grade you, and then you have interview in front of like members of the SWAT team and then other members of the department and some citizens. And then they rate all that together along with your normal work performance. Any discipline you have counts against you, your time on, and it goes into a matrix. And then you get rank ordered. And then eventually when there's openings, you can get on. Generally how it goes.
Interesting.
That sounds really hard. It sounds like it sounds like becoming a firefighter in Texas. It's just, well, anywhere really. It's like super competitive, right?
Oh yeah. We have firefighters on the SWAT team. So we have our SWAT team, we have police officers, Sedgwick County, we have police officers, sheriff's deputies, and then we have medics. And they basically get a commission as a reserve police officers. They can carry a firearm and do police. They technically have powers of arrest and stuff, but they're really only there for the medical stuff and to help us. Like they'll go in with us, we'll make like an entry, and they'll come in kind of like right after us, usually not in the first part of it, in case somebody goes down or somebody gets hurt. Or in their case, fire needs to put out, something needs to be broken. Firemen like to break stuff. Let's be honest, and they're really good at it.
So I know this podcast isn't about that, but do you have a pretty cool SWAT stories?
Oh, I got some silly SWAT stories. I could go on about that.
I want to know them all.
They're so good, and a lot of them, they're more fun to me because I think they're funny. So I'll tell a short one.
Okay. Thank you.
This is not super funny to everybody else, but for the longest time I'd have to hop fences. So you get to a scene and you have to like move around the house and get to your position if you're going to do the perimeter. And so I have to climb a lot of fences in my gear. And I was like, man, I'm really out of shape. I thought I was in shape. Why is this so hard? And then I weighed my SWAT outfit with my armor, my entry gear, my weapons and ammos and gas masks and all that stuff. It was 80 pounds. Whoa. So with the gear, I was weighing 280 pounds and I was trying to shimmy over all these fences. And so I was thinking about that one night, going to a call. I was working around to the back of the house. And of course you have your M4 is strapped onto the front of your gear, but you kind of hold it all the time too, right? And so I hop up on this chain link fence and then I grab my gun and I'm getting ready to hop down on the other side. It's about 3 feet high. And then I just fall. and I didn't have my hands free, and I just drove the barrel of my M4 into the mud all the way back to the stock.
Oh man!
I was like, oh god! And so somebody asked them okay because they can see me over there, but they can't really tell what I'm doing. And like I'm all right, and I get back to my position, and then I'm trying to clean my gun out. It's like a 5-hour call out, and so I have my handgun, and I tell my team leader what the deal is. Like, okay, stay where you're at. Mostly eyes on anyway at this point. But so I'm cleaning this gun out for like 2 hours with whatever I can find for a tool. And finally I get to the point and I rack it and I drop that slide on the M4 and the snipers immediately alert. They're like, "We hear him racking a gun in there." And I'm like, no, that's just me. He's still asleep.
Yeah, you got SWAT guys or snipers in SWAT too.
Yeah, they call them. They usually call them marksmen or marksmen and marksman observers. They're usually a 2-person team, but they're snipers. And mostly what they do is they set up and they give good intel. And of course, there are instances where they might have to be a sniper, but it's pretty rare. We would actually have to go hot. And that would be a hostage rescue something.
One last question from me. Is it usually drug related? Is that usually what you guys do?
It depends. We serve a lot of high-risk drug search warrants, but like usually they're barricades. You get a domestic violence where you have a possible hostage, and then you got a guy in there with a gun, and you're trying to get them separated. For like suicidal subjects, we'll contain it, but we're not really going to go in, because why would you? If it's just one person by themselves, why would you go in and force something bad to happen? But you still kind of need to be there in case they come out and try to like force the issue by shooting at the cops or something. And we have armored cars, and they come out and shoot at us, and we're like, we're in an armored car, thanks. And we can kind of slow it down and try to get them some help rather than having to shoot them.
You've actually had the car shot at?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. That's insane. It sounds like a movie, honestly.
Yeah. It's good times, but that's like 20 in 11 years, you get like, 45 minutes of good storytelling stuff. So.
Oh, really? Wow. So is there anything cool that's happened to you in the recent past?
Recently, as far as so for writing, I'm finishing up the 10th book in the Last Reaper series. That's exciting. That's hard. I've never done a 10-book series, and I've never finished a 10-book series. So that's pretty exciting. I'm almost done with that. As far as just other cool stuff, we had one of my officers. I'm a supervisor now, and I'm not on SWAT anymore, so I don't get to do exciting stuff that much. But I had one of my guys stir up a car chase, and somebody ran into a house that wasn't theirs. So now you have a fleeing felon into somebody's house. It could be a hostage. And so I showed up there in a patrol capacity, and we gathered around, and we got to boot the door and take the guy out. And that was exciting. That was a lot of fun because I got to drive really fast to get there. And then we got to boot a door, and then we had a little scuffle, and then nobody was hurt. We got our person arrested. So that was a good day.
So cops like to break stuff too, huh?
Oh, I love to break stuff. Oh yeah.
Do you have to exercise a lot in order to stay a police officer?
You don't have to, but it's a good idea if you do.
Okay.
I mean, you're going to have a lot less injuries, and you're just going to do a better job if you can. But it's hard to stay in shape because you work bad hours. You spend most of your time driving in a car, sitting at a desk. The only places that are open to eat are places with really bad food choices. You're going to probably not drink on duty, but probably going to smoke and chew tobacco and eat bad food and all those things you do for stress related, and then go home and get terrible sleep. And so, yeah, it's really easy to get out of shape when you're a cop. You got to try really hard.
That is tough. Well, for me, nothing really has changed. Just working, getting everything organized, getting pretty decently far in book 2. Super excited about that. So yeah, I'm ready to start this podcast finally. I called you Andally.
I know, Steve. It's not a great day for you, is it?
That's the first time.
That's perfect.
Let's see. So today we are talking about the consequences of hard choices, and I don't know why.
You always talk about like hard choices, right? You have to make you're in difficult situations. You got to make the best of a bad situation, but then often there's these terrible consequences that you have to live with them, and that's really that's almost the worst part. I mean, because that it's not a hard choice for any reason other than that the consequences are going to be bad. But that's got to be pretty difficult, knowing that you've got to face this and then having to deal with it. It doesn't make it any easier when it actually comes, and that's a theme in your book, right, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I always think that's really important, and almost anything I write that's gonna come up at some point. Sean Coyne calls it the best of two bad choices, or the irreconcilable goods. You just can't win for trying sometimes. But if the choice is easy, then Superman's going to try to save the kitten out of the tree. I mean, that's not really much of a choice. But when you have to save the kitten, but you have to like let something else bad happen so you can't be in two places at once. Those make those tell you more about your character, in my opinion, and they give more character development, because we've all had those choices. We're like, well, what would I do? What if I had to lose my job or go to my kid's baseball game, or
Man, I know what the hard choice I had to make recently. I mean, it was like 6 months ago. But I mean, honestly, I've had a really good life. I'm also pretty young. I haven't really had to make hard decisions before, and that came in the form of when you're told your pet has a problem, and their quality of life is bad, but you're not 100% sure if it's bad. The surgery could work. It has like a 5 to 10% chance of succeeding, but it costs like $5,000. And you put the cat asleep. That was probably one of the hardest choices I had to make. And I mean, it might sound menial to people listening to this, but it killed me. Like I wasn't even really attached to this cat, but to know that it was my decision that put this little, because I'm an animal person, to put this little animal in a
that's a hard decision. That's the worst.
It's horrible. And I have a dog who's 8 years old, and I really think I'm going to have to get therapy whenever that happens. I mean, I am going to freaking go crazy. But the decision I made was, I saw the quality of life diminish over a couple of days. Like, all right, let's take it. So I held it while they put it to sleep, and Jesus Christ, that was a life-changing moment for me. I've never felt something die before. I went hunting, but I shot a dove that was like 50 feet away or something.
Right, and it was a bird, so
who cares about parrots anyway? But yeah, I mean, that goes with this topic, I think, and just it sounds silly now that I hear it out loud.
No, but it is. It's totally like that. I mean, like my dad, they had 3 dogs, but and they kind of all got old. And the last one was like standing in a corner because it couldn't find its way out of the corner. It was blind and constantly in pain. And those are hard decisions, because you love your dog, almost more than a person sometimes.
Your children,
or your cat, or your children. Yeah, more than your children. They don't back up. Your dogs always love you. Your cats always love you. So those are hard choices. So another one would be like career choices and stuff like that. I mean, do you, like in my case, I was in graduate school and I had been in the police reserve, so I knew I kind of liked it, but I was kind of intimidated by it because it's hard to do part-time. And I wanted to go be a school psychologist because a lot of educators in my family, and I was doing that. And my wife informed me that she was pregnant, and I was like, you know what, I should probably have a job right now. And so, or when you get a job to pay the bills instead of write your novel or perform in the orchestra or whatever it is, those are hard choices too, and they define you, and that's how you deal with them. And characters have those choices too.
Yeah. One thing I hear a lot about is like people who, I don't hear it a lot, but I've heard from people who are writing full time and then they go back to their day job. And I feel like that would be really difficult for me. I don't know if I mean, obviously I would do it if I had to, but I feel like that would be very, very challenging for me to put that aside, to stop doing this thing every day and to go back to doing, what I used to do. I would have my reason why I would do it, take care of my family. So that would, it would make me do it. But I think I would struggle a lot with that.
It's hard. I mean, like I haven't gone full time yet. So I'm kind of trying to juggle both, but that's another hard choice, is like, so when do I pull the plug? Maybe you can give me some advice on when I should make the jump and go full time. Everybody I know that's done it says it's very liberating and it's amazing.
It is, but it's, there's the fallout of that, it's your only source of income. So you are very, very tied to it. And, it's stressful in a whole different sort of way.
Oh yeah.
And it's terrifying at times. I love it. I love the creative fulfillment. I love being able to do what I do. But I will tell you right now that I have never been this stressed as I have over the last year and a half of being a full-time author, when I was doing other stuff before, because there is no security beyond, the sort of the flimsy structure that is your confidence in your ability as a writer.
Yeah, but you can't always pay bills with confidence.
Exactly.
You're like,
Exactly.
nah, it'll be okay. Just tell your credit card company, nah, I'll get to you when I get to you. It'll be fine. No, they'll be okay with that.
Yeah, that's going to be extremely difficult to, I mean, because I went full time for a while, but the thing is, I'm not the fastest writer. And so that quickly became like, okay, yeah, you can't do this because, yeah, for 6 months, you're good, but then your books get old and your
Right.
series gets old and you have to have something new every month almost to stay pertinent. And so, and plus, I have this entrepreneurial side of me that I just have to have several businesses going at once, and it's often almost detrimental. But it's a really hard choice because some days I really wish I was, full time as an author, and I could spend all day and get upwards 5,000 to 8,000 words. Which Andy's like, dude, I do that before breakfast.
Yeah, I did it right now while we were sitting here.
Yeah, right. Do you write a lot every day? Do you write every day?
Oh, for me? Yeah, I usually, so what I do is I go to work at 6:30 in the morning. And so I have to, and you know how your days, for me, I think doing the most important things first is really crucial no matter what you're doing. And so I get up at 3 on my work days. I used to do it every day, but people have talked me into maybe trying to sleep once in a while. But so on my work days, I get up at 3 a.m. I try to get 2 hours of solid writing in, and usually it comes out to be about 90 minutes because you got to get up and get coffee. I keep a timer. I keep a word count. And then I go to work. And then if I can write on my lunch break, or maybe if I have energy after work, I get it in there, and then I work. I work 4 10.5-hour days for my job. So I have 3 days off. And on those 3 days, I try to write a lot. But that's the thing is I try to get it done first. And sometimes you're like, oh, this is easy, man. I'm way ahead. And then other times like I'm so far behind.
Is there a particular reason why, hard choices became this theme in your book? Because I also see it seems like a tough book. You said it's an anti-hero.
Yeah.
Is that like a theme in your life?
Well, yeah, it always is. Yeah. I mean, it's super hard. And, part of the thing that drew me to like my day job is that they're supposed to be kind of black and white decisions. This is the law. These are the policies. These are your choices. But it's really not that simple, because a lot of times, like one of the things I have to do, probably the hardest choice I have to make on a daily basis, is I'll go out to check welfare. And so I remember one time as a rookie, I get sent out to this call with my training officer, and the kids are filthy. The house is filthy. There's no sheets on any of the beds. They're basically sleeping on the floor. But there is heat, and there is a piece of cake. There's a large piece of cake, so like for more than one person, in the fridge. And that's the only food in the entire fridge. So I'm not sheltered, but I went there and I saw, okay, well, these kids are there with their mom, who's kind of checked out. They're sleeping basically on couches or the floor with no bedding. They have cake to eat. That's it. And they're filthy. Wow. And the people that called them in were like, well, you need to take them into protective custody. I'm like, I don't know what the threshold is. When are they actually in danger to where you have to intervene, from the government level? And that's a very serious thing. Now in Kansas, if you take somebody's children, they're going to get them back probably the next day, because basically all they have to do is check in, make sure they're working with their thing, getting their assistance. They get people to help them and stuff. But so I go out, like the last one I went out on, I was checking these kids, one child who was like 9 months old. And when I opened the refrigerator that worked, there were cockroaches, live cockroaches inside the refrigerator. And you get to the point where it's like you got, mold, and you got animal feces everywhere. And so you have to decide, I'm going to take this person's kids from them. I'm going to put them in protective custody. And that's a really hard choice, because that would be devastating. But, or one time I went out and they had no power, it was like 10 degrees outside, and all they had to heat was like a homemade wood stove, but they didn't have any wood. So what they were doing is they were rolling up carpet and burning carpet.
Oh,
and that one was fairly easy. I'm like, I'm taking these kids before they die.
Yeah.
and then we'll get you some resources and get you some heat in your house, and you get the kids back and stuff. So those are hard choices. So hard choices have always been something I think about
Is
on a
it
day-to-day basis.
usually drug related that this is happening?
It's hard to say. A lot of times it is drug related or other substance abuse related, but sometimes it's like, there's so many different, it's hard to really sweep with a broad brush. Sometimes people they were raising their kids exactly how they were raised. So they were neglected and they don't really know any better. To them, it doesn't make sense that, yes, you should bathe your kids, take them to the dentist if you have dental care through your work or whatever, and things like that. And to them, they're doing exactly what they know. And then in other cases, there are substance abuses. There's physical abuse in some of those things. But those are lots of things. That's the part of the job that makes me want to retire. After you do that, if you have a bad day where you do 4 or 5 of those, and maybe you go out on a call where a kid's died or something, and
oh my God. Are you serious?
oh yeah, that's my worst thing. Every time I get one of those, I'm like, I'm done.
Do you have kids? Is that?
Oh yeah, I have 4 kids.
Are they at home right now?
They're all home, even though the oldest one's 23. So I have from 9 to 23 years old.
Andy, can you put up Joshua's thing, or is it gone?
Sure, it's right there.
Yeah, so I know Joshua is I think he calls it a social worker.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting to see this as well.
And we work. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I didn't even think about mental health concerns.
Yeah, no, that is a very big one. And there's less and less financing and funding in general for mental health stuff. And people don't always get the care they need. Or if they get it, then they stop taking their meds, because once you feel good, you're like, I feel good, I don't need to take them anymore. And then now you're back in your episode and you don't know to take your meds and things like that. That's very important.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of that before, where people just stop taking their meds, and they don't realize that, once you stop, you're going to revert back. I mean, it's obvious, I feel like, to people who don't take it, but I don't know, maybe the medicine kind of just makes them feel like.
Yeah, it makes them feel bad too. A lot of times there's side effects. They don't want the side effects, and they just don't want to take meds. So to bring it back to writing, because if I go down the dark place, because I was a detective for the Exploited Missing Child Unit for 4 years, and I dealt with sexual abuse and physical abuse. So those stories I won't talk about on air because it's a dark place, and then we'll all be depressed, and we don't want to do that. So, so going back to hard choices, like in Enemy of Man is the first book in the Chronicles of Ken Rowland, and I think the sample I sent you is from that book. But so what his dilemma is he was like a shock trooper, and they were sent. They had a planet full of aliens, from the movie Aliens. They're like, there's nothing good about them. All they want to do is eat people's faces and terrorize their nightmares, literally feed off their fear. And so they go to war with them. They go to their planet. They're fighting a huge battle there. And they tell him, we need you to be the last man on the planet. We need you to pull this switch, which is going to set off nuclear bombs in a certain order that's going to break the planet into rocks, and they're all going to die. Well, he makes a decision. And this is pre-story. This is his backstory a little bit. He makes a decision that he doesn't want to commit genocide, even though they're horrible creatures. He makes a moral decision. I can't commit genocide, but I can blow their planet up, and they're not space capable. They'll never be able to hurt us. And he does that. Well, that earns him a court-martial and a death sentence. And those aliens that he almost annihilated are also very angry with him. And so he flees. So when our story starts, he's on a planet being hunted by his own government that consider him a traitor for not committing genocide, and the aliens, who he blew up a bunch of them. So he made a hard choice. He's like, I cannot pull the trigger and wipe out an entire intelligent species, even though they're monstrous. And so it was a hard choice. And then he pays the consequences for it in that first book.
Jesus, dude. That is
it's kind of dark. It's kind of dark.
Yeah, so the aliens that he killed, that's not the ones he was going to do genocide on?
Oh, yeah. So he was supposed to blow up the planet and literally wipe out every last one of them. But instead, he set off the nukes in the wrong order. So it basically blew up their spaceports, and he figures they'll never be able to build a fleet and go to war with us. It'll be fine. But of
Oh,
course, some of them
okay.
get off, and then they kind of like instead of in big armies, little groups of them will go around hunting people, especially him. Because
So that must be a hard choice because now does he kill them when they're shooting at him? These aliens? What's the choice he
oh
does he make?
yeah, well, and he'll always fight them, but it's the consequences of his choice. So now he he winds up basically being like a kind of like a security guard on this lost planet, and the fleet comes there by accident, but they're going to realize he's a traitor and they're going to hunt him down and kill him. So he's got to hide from them. But then one of these reapers come, and it's trying to hunt because it likes to capture and torture people and like feed on their nightmares before it eats them. And of
Mhm.
course, it gets people he cares about, and now his choices have caused all these bad things to happen. He's got to go try to fix everything.
That actually really sounds really good.
I like the book a lot. I wish I could get more people to read it, but so
looks like you're doing pretty good though, with
yeah.
the amount of reviews and stuff. You have a pretty good following. That's awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
but it's also with a guy named Cheney.
Well, that's the last Reaper series. That's an entirely different series than one I was just talking about. So,
Okay, I got
yeah,
confused.
my Reaper confusion. That's what we should title my interview is the Reaper confusion.
That could just be your next series, Scott.
Yeah. So the last Reaper, in contrast to what we just talked about, this guy was the hard choice that starts him down his path is he is a shock trooper and a special operations guy. They're suppressing some rebels, and his officers are bombing a bridge that these civilians are on. And he tries to save this woman, and he's holding her with one hand, and he's not strong enough to keep her, but he doesn't want to let her go, and he's ordered to let her go. And he, of course, refuses. Well, then his officer shoots his arm off, and she falls to her death. But he loses his arm. Well, eventually they take him and they replace his arm with a cybernetic arm, and they make him an assassin, and they put cybernetics in him, some other things, limited artificial intelligence, which is kind of in his head, and he becomes the last Reaper, and they make him like the super assassin. And it's a little bit of a spoiler, but basically they set him up to commit all these murders. When they don't want him anymore, then they throw him in prison. And the story starts, the last Reaper starts when they need him to go someplace to get somebody rescued. That's basically a suicide mission. So they're like, hey, you're on death row. Why don't you go try and get this guy for you? Maybe we'll cut you a break. That's where that one starts.
Do you have any lighter books?
Dark Landing's Dark Landing sounds dark, but Dark Landing is basically a space Western. I wrote that with Craig Martell, and it's it's a mining colony, and a sheriff there is trying to do peace and order. It's pretty good.
Yeah, you're from Kansas.
Like Deadwood. Deadwood in space.
It's like Deadwood, except he has a couple of his sidekick has some interesting mannerisms, and he got this thing called a pig dog. We're talking about animals earlier. The pig dog actually follows him around and is semi-sentient and farts a lot. So it's pretty hilarious. I mean, always good for a good yuck.
I would definitely like that, but I'm also a child. So
me too. Trying to be.
And are your kids, it's a weird question, are your kids still in the house?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have they're here. They're all still here. They're one's in college, one's in cosmetology school, and the other two are in grade school.
Okay. Also, well, that's a good idea to stay in at home when you're going to school. That's what I did, man. I saved a ton of money that I should have put towards the debt of the degree. Right. But you know how that is.
Oh, I did the same thing. I'm always battling that. Another hard choice.
Yeah, there you go. Andy, should we go to the reading now?
Yeah, Scott, one question from the audience. Is the Last Reaper series on Audible?
The Last Reaper series, the first two books, The Last Reaper and Fear the Reaper, are both on Podium. Podium put those out, read by Ray Porter, and they're very good.
Ooh.
I love them a lot. The third book in the series, Blade of the Reaper, is in production by Ray Porter. So he's very in demand. So it takes a little bit longer to get those done, but all 10 of them will be done at some point.
Awesome. And then your series, the Chronicles of Ken Rowland?
Chronicles of Ken Rowland are available through ACX. Reese Allen Morse read those, did a pretty good job. I really like those as well.
Nice. We got some Audible listeners here. I am one of them.
I love audiobooks. I'm always listening to an audiobook.
Me too.
Let's see. Okay, so I'm pulling up the reading. We're doing it.
Yeah.
It's chapter 13, right?
Chapter 13.
Okay, and this is book 1?
This is book 1. This is from Enemy of Man, chapter 13.
Okay. Book 1.
All right, so Scott, you are the director. You get to tell us which of us does the narrator, which does the voices, etc. Direct us.
Great. Okay. Well, do you guys have preference for? Have you guys looked through this and looked at the characters? There's 3 characters.
I could do the narration.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, some fun with narration.
Why don't you do Kin, then Scott, and I'll do the other 2 guys.
Okay. So you're going to do Rickson and Bear, and I'll do Ken Roland.
And what are these people like, Rickson and Bear?
Okay, so Rickson is a shepherd boy, and he is somebody who basically follows Ken around and shows up at inopportune moments. He's
how old?
I'd say he's probably 13 or 14. You know, he's young enough that he's old enough to get by on his own, but he's definitely still a kid. So
okay, and Bear's
an old mountain man.
Old mountain man, great.
Old man, former soldier. Yep.
I can make that work.
Awesome. You guys ready to start?
Take it away.
Sure.
All right. Chapter 13. Bear led the way without explaining where they were going. Ken followed and watched the shadows. He thought he knew where his friend was taking them and didn't argue. Bear hardly made a sound as he moved. He paused to stare up the trail before looking around. Then he nodded and continued. Ogre stalked behind him, sleek and silent, but oddly playful.
What's he doing?
Rickson asked.
Listen for the Reaper,
Ken said quietly. He followed behind Bear as though a single sound would doom them all. Rickson wasn't as quiet.
Or clingers. He said there were clingers out here.
Rickson said.
Clingers don't leave their valley.
But he saw them.
Rickson walked sideways to see down a side trail and then walked backward for a few steps. He spun around and hurried to catch up.
Why would he say if he saw them if he didn't?
Ken ignored Rickson and watched Bear reach the top of the trail. The steep path forced Bear to put one hand on the ground for balance as he went over the top.
Why do you say he saw a clinger?
Rickson asked.
Because he did.
But you said they don't come out of their valley.
Be quiet.
They emerged at the top of a narrow canyon that twisted downward. Bones were scattered across the path like the pavement of a road. At the bottom, the canyon widened into a field of evergreen trees that had lower branches gnawed off. Silence held the boneyard as though even the wind feared to trespass.
Where are we going, Bear?
Ken asked. Bear shrugged.
We need horses. I figure if you haven't caught the Reaper by now, it's because you can't. So we need horses.
And we have to go through a den of wolves to get them?
Ken asked.
I can handle wolves. I'm a shepherd,
Rickson said. Bear crouched, watching and listening for danger before he responded to Rickson's boast.
These aren't earth wolves from your ship's menagerie. They didn't escape and turn feral. These are native wolves. Hold your breath. Hold very still and look down there right now. Do you see it?
Ken saw a huge wolf creeping between the trees. Its fur looked like steel wool combed into sheets of razors. Others followed behind, moving silently in a formation with military precision. Bear had told him about the local wolves, but Ken had never seen them. His first impulse was to compare them to the Reapers. It could be a good fight. The thought of facing one of these creatures filled him with dread, but he didn't think they could rip a man out of assault armor and eat him still screaming.
So where are the horses?
Near the water, if the wolves haven't eaten them. I train those animals to walk on rope bridges if necessary, and these monsters stole them.
Bear said.
Why would they do that?
Rickson asked.
To attract other monsters. Snakes, mostly. Crash down wolves love to eat snakes.
Bear said.
But they also eat horses if they're hungry enough.
And shepherds who don't listen.
Ken said. Bear laughed.
Ha ha! Maybe you can kill them with your stupid jokes.
Rickson said. Ken looked at the boy.
Who do you think they would catch first?
Not me. I can run faster than him.
Rickson said, pointing at Bear.
But you don't know where you're going. Hard to get away running in a circle.
Bear said. Rickson forced a queasy smile. He looked at Ogre.
Shouldn't you be growling or something?
The dog's tongue hung out of his mouth. Ken moved around the top of the trail and watched the wolves prowl out of sight. The narrow valley curved out of view, although Bear claimed substantial meadows existed beyond the bottleneck, with waterways and other spectacular sights. Bear told grand tales, especially after a few mugs of mead, but the details were usually consistent. Ken thought he could piece together an idea of what to expect from the landscape. The challenge would be getting past the foot of the trail, an area patrolled by a score of wolf monsters.
How smart are they?
Ken asked. Ogre huffed.
Smart enough to keep watching shifts and leave bait and traps.
Bear said.
You can't parley with them if that's what you're hoping for.
Ken removed his binoculars from his belt and studied the floor of the valley, the steep walls around it, and the clouds that drifted near distant peaks. He lowered the binoculars and saw Rickson near the top of the trail, staring intently at the scene below. Ken winked at Bear, smiled, and then adopted a serious expression.
The only way we can do this is to send Rickson first. Once the wolves chase him, we can move in and steal the horses.
Ken said.
I don't like that plan.
Rickson said without looking up. Bear laughed. Rickson continued.
Why don't we send the Reaper down there and steal the horses while they fight?
That's a good idea.
Said.
Bear, go ask the Reaper if he would help us.
Right away.
Bear said, but he didn't move. Rickson edged back from the trail and challenged Ken.
This would be a lot easier if you'd ask for help. Clavender is going to get killed because you're too proud to let fleet troopers take the glory. They could catch the Reaper and kill it before dinner time. We're out here trying to steal horses that are probably already dead. I know wolves, whatever kind they are, and they don't leave meat on the hoof for later. These do.
Bear said.
Just because you live alone and don't take baths don't mean you're some kind of wise man.
Rickson said.
It only means you stink.
Bear laughed loud enough for the crash-down wolves or even the Reaper to hear.
I like this boy, kid. Why haven't you brought him up before? I'd have to box his ears a few times, teach him respect, but he's opinionated, and I like that. I watched you and Ken get drunk once.
Rickson said. Bear looked at Ken questioningly. Ken shrugged.
He's a bit of a spy.
He knew Rickson was right, mostly. He wasn't sure the fleet troopers could catch Droon. In a battle, the discipline and technology of modern soldiers was hard to resist. Generally, it took a fleet trooper to beat a fleet trooper, but Reapers were fast. They never got tired and never slept. How could he explain to a provincial boy that had not seen the inside of a spacecraft since he was a child that the fleet always came first? Commander Westwood would drop a nuclear bomb on Crashdown and leave it if it suited his strategic objective. The people of Cratertown should be praying their interests were exactly the same as the fleet's interests.
Why do we need the horses again?
Rickson asked. Bear eyed Ken before saying,
We're trying to catch a Reaper. In case you haven't heard, Reapers are fast. You're just using Ken to get your horses back,
Rickson said. Bear grabbed the shepherd by the back of his collar and hoisted him onto his toes.
You better look me in the face when you make an accusation like that. As it happens, I could get the horses myself. I just haven't gotten around to it.
He dropped Rickson. The boy stumbled, gripping his staff with the one hand, flailing the other for balance. Ken turned to Bear.
So what's your plan?
Bear eyed Rickson for another moment, then stepped to the edge of the trail that dropped toward the valley floor like a slide. He pointed at the walls of the valley to his right.
There's a trail this way. We can follow it and drop down near the lake. It'll take a bit of climbing, and if you fall, you'll die. It looks like you'd have a chance to grab one of the ridges or land in those treetops, but don't kid yourself. You fall, you die, so don't fall.
Ken examined the path Bear described, noting the foot and handholds. There was even a stretch of trail a bit wider than a rope. That's comforting.
How long will this take?
Couple of hours until we start the descent. Couple more to get down. The wolves don't look up often, so as long as they follow the normal patrol route, we should be able to reach the horses without problems.
And how do we get them out?
Ken asked. Bear smiled.
That's the easy part. All we need to do is ride them through a little waterfall.
Can you climb that, Rickson?
Ken asked.
I can climb anything he can climb.
Rickson said.
Now that sounds like a challenge.
Bear popped his knuckles, then rolled his shoulders.
You go first, then Rickson. I'll go last.
Rickson stared at him defiantly.
You think I won't go?
He strode toward the questionable ledge that led across the wall of the valley.
Now hold on, boy. I have to go first. You don't know the way. Kin is doing it right. Any military commander would do the same. Put your best first and your second best last. That keeps everyone together. No shame in it.
That's not how I would have put it.
Kin said.
Just watch where Bear puts his hands in his feet. Don't take chances. Go slow.
They looked at Ogre, who was panting happily, enjoying the sudden attention. He whined when no one spoke.
He'll be all right.
Kin said. Rickson shook his head.
We can't leave him, not out here.
Kin knelt and petted Ogre for a long time.
This sucks,
Rickson said.
He's probably the only one who will make it home.
Kin said.
Rickson could take the dog back,
Bear suggested.
Too dangerous.
Kin worried about the dog, but trusted the animal's instincts. Ogre came and went as he pleased, sometimes disappearing from Crater Town for days at a time. He kept his attention on the dog, avoiding Rickson's pleading gaze.
If it's too dangerous for me, if it's too dangerous for me, then it's too dangerous for him.
Rickson said.
Not the time to argue.
Kin said.
Whatever. We can't leave Ogre up here with clingers, reapers, and crashdown wolves.
Rickson said.
The wolves are down there and we don't know where the Reaper is.
Kin said.
Run home, dog.
Ogre settled down with his face on his paws. Kin massaged his forehead, remembering the scene outside the Valley of Clingers. Dogs howling in pain as Droon gorged himself.
Maybe I could carry him,
Bear said.
You can't carry him.
Kin stroked the dog and stepped back.
Go find Laura.
Ogre looked away, hesitated, and then started to move. He stopped several times looking at them, but eventually headed back the way they had come. Rickson adjusted his tunic and pack. Bear looked him over, nodded, and went to the ledge. He didn't seem afraid, but neither did he dance over the 1,000-foot drop making jokes. Kin hesitated at the ledge and looked back, spotting Ogre as he crept back toward the ledge. The dog stopped and hunkered down. Kin smiled. The dog lifted its head hopefully.
Go on,
Kin said. Ogre lowered his head onto his paws. Kin turned away and moved onto the ledge. He didn't need horses for the same reason Bear thought Rickson would be the one caught by the wolves. It wasn't about speed, it was about knowledge. Kin knew the mountains better than Droon. Bear knew the mountains better than Kin. With luck, they'd be able to trap the Reaper and recover Clavender unharmed. No plan survived first contact, but there was nothing left but to begin. He trusted Bear, and he couldn't leave Rickson. He'd just follow anyway. Excellent.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Fun. I never done that before. That was interesting.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Well, not quite like that. I mean, maybe like in high school we had drama class. But
Class. I have to ask, so a Reaper is kind of like the last Reaper.
Well, no, the Reaper is kind of a cross between Aliens, the Predator, and like just some sort of super hunter non-human thing. They only think in present tense.
That's an interesting take.
What they do is, and so like one of the things that happens to Ken, it talks about later in the book, is he gets captured by Reapers when he is on Hell's Breach, which is their homeworld, and the way they do medicine is different than we do medicine because they basically eat each other. And so like sort of like, you eat my hand, I eat your hand, and they're doing that. And so you can see that when they're trying to care for him in this pit, this healing pit, and it's very traumatic to him, and it causes a lot of problems, but it also gets some kind of contamination. And so what the Reapers do is they hunt people down, and then they invade their dreams, and they feed off their psychic energy, and then they basically just eat their whole head, eat their faces literally, and then all the rest of them. So
this has nothing to do with the last Reaper?
Nope.
Okay. You just the
yeah. Well, and initially we were going to call the Reapers were going to be the Spectres. Okay. But at the time, Jeff thought that it was too close to some other video game or something that we were both kind of familiar with. This, there's a Spectre in some things, and he thought, no, let's go with Reapers, and we both liked it. And I didn't really know if there would be a lot of chance of cross readership at the time, and I think they're different enough. I did consider taking this where my Reapers are like 10,000 years in the future from the last Reaper. But that would take would take some crossover series. Maybe that could be fun.
That would be cool. So are you saying they mutated to that, or?
Well, and it depends. There is some spoilers. The Reapers turn out to be a human creation from thousands of years before, where there's some genetic manipulation, and they're made as weapons. And that's one of the reasons because they literally can't metabolize their food unless their food is in terror of them.
Oh, wow.
And so they won't just eat something. They have to terrorize it first. And so that's what makes them such a bad thing to be hunting you, is because they're mean. They're really mean. And then one of the characters, they mentioned Droon in there. Droon is the Reaper, and there's some POV, some point of view from Droon's perspective, and it's very interesting.
I'm guessing you've seen some shit in your life to come up with that.
I'm very twisted.
The meat has to be terrified before it can be devoured.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So they can't just they can't then to eat.
Right. They have to tenderize it with fear, I guess, a little bit. And so there's some cool stuff in there.
Andy, Mass Effect, they're called Reavers, is that right? Or are they also Reapers?
I don't know. It might be Reapers in Mass Effect.
I think, is there Reapers in Halo?
I know Mass Effect. Okay, Reapers does have is a Mass Effect. They have the Reapers.
They're the alien civilization in 2 and 3. I know that much.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, is we kicked back several different ideas for what we were going to use for that name, but every time I Google them, I find like 10 different things. So everything's been used so many times. Yeah. Like if you search for Reaper in Amazon, you might get The Last Reaper, you might get The Chronicles of Ken Roland, but you're also going to get a bunch of bare-chested biker erotica stuff. I'm not quite sure what the connection is there, but it's there. So
I actually did most of those covers. Saying
that's what we thought. I thought it was in the blurb there at the bottom.
You should know that you were the photographer.
Right. The lighting has to be just right.
It's got to be great. Awesome. Well, Scott, where can people find you?
You can go to scottmoonwriter.com is my website. The other easy way is you can go to the Moonbase is my Facebook page, or you can go to RN Cheney's Renegade Readers. It's a very active Facebook page we have there, or just on Amazon is a real good way. Or go to Keystroke Medium. I do a podcast. It's nonfiction, but I'm always there chatting people up. So
you said moonbase.com?
The Moonbase is my Facebook group.
Oh, okay. So I have one last question before we end this, and feel free not to answer, but I'm just really curious as to what your cop friends think about you being a writer, because you're kind of a lot of them, right? So they can't be you.
Well, it's funny. Their reactions are all different because they tease me about it, but then it's different now than it was like 2 years ago, because I've started to have some success in the last year. So now they're like, oh yeah, so you're a writer. I'm like, yeah, actually, like, did you publish it? Have you published a book yet this year? I'm like, well, I've published 10. Which one would you want to read?
Feels good, doesn't it?
And so they tease me about it, and some of them are readers, but a lot of them aren't. And so it's a good time. They think I'm a geek. They've always thought I'm a geek, so that's fine with me.
That's pretty interesting. I'm glad I asked that question, because here in Texas, especially the southern parts where I work a lot. I just don't tell people I'm an author. It's not feasible. And I work at a place called Rockdale, and I'm pretty sure, seriously, I think some of them, I'm going to be mean saying like they haven't seen a book before, but really it's.
Oh no. I have friends, they brag about it. Like I've read 5 books my entire life.
Yeah.
And these are some of the smartest people I know. But yeah, not everybody reads some of them, but some of them read a lot too. I mean, like I have one guy that works on my shift, and he probably reads 3 books a month, 3 books a week, which is way faster than I read.
Wow.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So it just depends.
Speed reading is a myth, but I guess not.
If you got a lot of time on your hands, or you're just, my son's the same way too. My oldest son reads really, really fast. And I learned, I used to buy him those Warhammer books that are like that thick.
Yeah.
And then like 2 days later, it's like, I need a new book. I'm like, I can't keep you in books. You have to get another job.
You have to go to the library.
Yeah.
His libraries some of them don't even have those awesome books. So, Scott, Scott, thank you so much for being on the Fantasy Fiends podcast. And if you're listening to this, go check out the Keystroke Medium podcast. They're similar to us, except y'all are pretty similar to us, right?
Yeah, pretty similar. We do a lot of mill sci-fis where we started, but we go all over the place now. We talk about craft, but usually we just have shows. We just kind of bullshit every Monday night. So if you're looking for that, it's fun.
Very similar.
It is hella fun. I've been on, I think, 3 times now. And It's always fun.
Yeah, you're one of our highest returning.
How many times do I have to be on to have the record?
I think you might be tied for first place. We'll have to look.
All right, because I've got a book series launching in April, so I got to take that
can
number
make that
1
happen.
spot. Exactly.
Yeah, we can make that happen. We can work something out.
Awesome.
Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Scott.
You got one more Audible listener. Steven Servin said he just picked up The Last Reaper on Audible. So
fantastic.
That guy's a machine. I know he listens to a lot of Audible. So, well, thank you, Scott, for being here. Really appreciate you, man. We definitely need to have you back. I really enjoyed reading your excerpt. That was freaking awesome, especially hearing about the Reapers. I know what kind of person you are now. See inside your soul. So that is it for this week's Fantasy Fiends podcast. We will be back next Thursday. There's no podcast this Thursday. We will miss you, but don't worry. Andy will be here next week, and I'm quitting. No, I'm not quitting. Anyways, guys, we love you all. We hope you have a great night. Please remember to hit that like button. And if you really want to help us out, you could share this on Facebook. It would be great to hit 1,000 subscribers on this channel so we could actually start getting monetized. And we really appreciate it if you could help us out. Yeah, that would be awesome. And that is it, guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next Thursday.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
Now the awkward pause.
Yeah, while we wait for
start telling dirty jokes right before it goes.